Welcome to Arise YouTube, where we exist so that way you can experience God. If you haven't already done so, make sure to click that subscribe button so that way you can keep up with our weekly sermons. With that being said, we pray that this sermon blesses you and encourages you to take one more step closer to Jesus. Enjoy.
All right, how many people were here last night or were somewhere else at the time? How many were not here last night? Where were you? All right, we've got to do a very brief review. Remember, what we're trying to show is that Christianity is indeed true, and we said there are 4 questions you need to look at to see if it is. Does truth exist? Does God exist? Are miracles possible? And is the New Testament true? Now, last night we just covered point 1, does truth exist? All right? And just to review, we said that whenever you start talking about truth, you always have to start with Jack Nicholson. Now, don't blow this time, all right? Because Tom Cruise had him on the witness stand, and he said to him, "Colonel, I want the truth." And Nicholson said, "You can't handle the truth." All right, you got it. You got it.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
And we said when somebody says there is no truth, you should ask that person a question. What should the question be? Is that true? All right? And the thing you want to get used to doing is you want to get used to turning the claim on itself. Turn the claim on itself. Because to say there is no truth is actually a truth claim, claiming it's true. It's a self-defeating statement. It would be like saying I can't speak a word in English. And we went through a whole bunch of other statements last night, like this one. There are no absolutes, right? There's no absolute truth, to which you would respond by saying what? Is that an absolute? And then we said people will say all truth is relative. And when they say that, if you turn the claim on itself, you're going to say what? Is that a relative truth? And then we said people will say there isn't the truth, only my truth. And you're going to say, yeah, is that just your truth or is it the truth? This is a the truth claim, claiming there are no the truths. And then we said some people will say it's true for you, but not for me. And we're going to say what? Is that true for everybody? And then we said some people will say that all truth comes from science, or there is no truth in anything but science. And if we turn the claim on itself, we're going to say what? Is that a scientific truth? No, that's not a scientific truth at all. It's a philosophical claim. And then we said some people will say you should doubt everything. And we're going to say what? Yeah, should we doubt that? And then we said some people are going to tell you you ought not judge. And then you're going to say, then why are you judging me for judging? It's a judgment, right? And we said all these statements actually shoot themselves, right? That's what we did last night. You remember this? All right, good. And we said sometimes when people have questions or they're hostile to you because you believe in Christianity, you ought to stop and ask them a question. What should the question be? Yeah, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? Because a lot of times they're going to say no. They're not interested in evidence. They don't want it to be true. They don't want there to be a God because they want to be God of their own lives. And so just ask them, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? If they hesitate or say no, the problem's not in the head, the problem's in the heart. All you can do at that point is love them, pray for them, and wait. Because at some point when tragedy strikes, they're probably going to call you, not their atheist friend, all right? Now, the next step that we were going to do was to point out that, yes, truth exists. The next question is, does God exist? Okay, that was review. You guys ready for new material? Yeah. All right. I mentioned last night that there are 3 arguments for the existence of God that we're going to look at. So let's take a look at these arguments. I'll just list them now, and then we'll go through them. The first argument is the argument from the beginning of the universe known as the Cosmological Argument. Cosmological just comes from the Greek word cosmos, which means world or universe. And it says if the universe had a beginning, it must have had a beginner. The second argument is the argument from design. This is technically known as the Teleological Argument. And telos is a Greek word meaning design or purpose. And it says if there's design in the universe and design in you, life, then there must be a designer. Now, these two arguments have some scientific evidence behind them. We'll see some of that evidence here in a minute. The third argument doesn't have any science behind it, yet it's the argument we've all known since we were very small children. It's the argument from morality known as the moral argument. And it says if there's one thing morally wrong out there, just one, like it's wrong to torture babies for fun, or it's wrong to murder 6 million people in a Holocaust, then there has to be a God. Why? Because if there is no standard beyond humanity, then everything's just a matter of opinion. That would just be, say, your opinion against a baby torturer's opinion, or your opinion against Hitler's opinion. Well, we know that torturing babies isn't just a matter of opinion. We know that murdering people isn't just a matter of opinion. But it can only not just be a matter of opinion if there's a standard beyond us, and that standard is God's nature. There has to be a standard that we're obligated to obey, a standard of goodness, righteousness, and justice. Otherwise, you couldn't really justify why murder was wrong. You couldn't justify why torturing babies for fun was wrong. You couldn't justify anything as right or wrong. Now, we'll talk about that later, but we got to start right here at the cosmological argument. Now, you got to admit, it was worth getting up this morning just to see God do that. Did you guys see that? Some of you said, I've never seen God move. Oh, really? Check this out. Now, this is the argument that many say points back to the... Now, some of you are going, Frank, you know, we're Christians in here, and we don't believe in the Big Bang. You guys don't believe in the Big Bang? I believe in the Big Bang. I just know who banged it. In fact, the evidence for the Big Bang is so good that even atheistic scientists are admitting it. Stephen Hawking, who was probably the top physicist in the world until he died about 5 years ago. As you know, he had ALS. He was in a wheelchair for like 45 years. In any event, here's what Hawking said. He said, almost everyone now believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang. Now, Hawking tried to come up with another explanation for this other than God. He failed, but he's admitting that space, matter, and time had a beginning out of nothing. Now, what was Hawking's explanation for how space, matter, and time could come into existence out of nothing? The last book he wrote, on page 181, this book was called The Grand Design, he said this: because there's a law like gravity, the universe can and will create itself out of nothing. What? Now, John Lennox, a brilliant Christian apologist and mathematician and philosopher from Oxford University, said this about what Hawking said about the beginning of the universe. He said, when brilliant scientists say nonsense, it's still nonsense, right? Because there's a law like gravity, the universe can and will create itself out of nothing. First of all, there was no gravity, there was nothing. There was no space, no matter, no time, and then a universe came into existence. And secondly, even if gravity did exist, it doesn't create anything. It just does the same thing over and over again. So gravity is not our creator. By the way, how many have heard of John Lennox? Okay, if you haven't heard of John Lennox, you need to look him up. He's about 80 years old now. He is the most affable, most likable Christian apologist you'll ever meet. In fact, years ago, he debated Richard Dawkins. I don't know if you know who Richard Dawkins is. He's probably the most famous atheist in the world. He wrote a book a number of years ago called The God Delusion. He thinks if you're deluded, if you believe in God. And Dawkins and Lennox had a few debates about 10 or 15 years ago. You can see these on YouTube. And Lennox is the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's so likable. Dawkins, on the other hand, can come across as a bit of a sourpuss. So one of the reviewers of one of their debates said, watching John Lennox debate Richard Dawkins was like watching Santa Claus debate the devil, right? But you ought to really watch those debates. They're very good. In any event, Lennox is a guy you ought to look into because he is very likable and very knowledgeable. Now, it wasn't just an atheist like Hawking who said the universe had a beginning. Even agnostic scientists, people who don't know whether God exists or not, like Alexander Vilenkin, originally from Russia but now teaches at Tufts University, he said this after looking at the evidence for the beginning of the universe. He said, with the proof now in place, cosmologists, by the way, a cosmologist is not someone that puts on your makeup, all right? Cosmologist is someone that studies the universe. Cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. There is now no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. Now, a couple interesting words in this quote from Vilenkin. The word proof. Why is he using the word proof here? Science, by definition, is tentative. There's always new data that could come in, or there might be new data that comes in that overturns a previous scientific theory. This happens all the time, right? Why would he say the word proof? Because he sees so many lines of evidence that cross at one point, the point that the universe had a beginning, that he says, I'm going to call it a proof. I don't think it's going to be overturned. The other interesting word is the word problem. Why is it a problem that there was a cosmic beginning? He doesn't want to accept it. And if you are an atheist or an agnostic and you don't believe that there's any intelligent being out there that created all this, there is no answer. Why? Why is it a problem? Because if all of nature had a beginning, then whatever created nature can't be made of nature. In other words, you can't have a natural cause for all of nature because nature didn't exist. It's got to be something outside of nature, something we would call supernature, right? Beyond the natural. Why do we call Superman Superman? Because he's beyond the man. Why do we call something that's beyond nature supernature? It means beyond nature. In fact, a number of years ago, I was at Oakland University in Michigan, and during the Q&A, an atheist got up to the microphone. He was a former Christian. He said, Frank, when you say the universe had a beginning, and it had to be God that did it, or a being like God that did it, he said, you just need to give science more time. If you give science more time, we're going to figure out a natural cause for the universe. I said, John, we're never going to find a natural cause for all of nature. He said, no. Just give science more time and we'll figure it out. I said, first of all, John, that sounds a lot like faith. Right? We haven't found the answer yet, but we will. That's a faith position. And secondly, you're never going to find a natural cause for all of nature. Because it's got to be beyond nature, something that created nature. Right. I said, for you to say that one day we're going to find a natural cause for all of nature, that would be like me saying, if you just give me more time, one day I'm going to figure out that I gave birth to my own mother. Okay? It's impossible. My mother must come before me, right? Well, there's got to be something before nature if nature had a beginning. And the point is, nature did have a beginning. Now, we're not going to go through the scientific evidence for this. Why? Number one, we don't have time. Number two, it's all in the book. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. By the way, we ran out of books last night, but if you want a book and you go to this church, if you pay for it now, we'll just mail it here. It'll either be here next Sunday or the Sunday after, and you can just pick it up. No shipping, none of that, okay? If you don't go to this church, why not? If you don't go to this church, you can just get it on our website. Just go to crossexamine.org, click on store. And the third reason we are not going to go through the evidence for the scientific evidence, because it's not controversial. Even atheists are admitting it, okay? Although you may have heard last week, some people have tried to say that because of the James Webb telescope, have you heard this? That maybe the Big Bang didn't happen? No, that's not true. The evidence from the James Webb telescope still shows that the Big Bang happened. What the evidence from the James Webb telescope might cause scientists to do is to reevaluate how galaxies formed, not that there was a beginning and an expanding universe. That still hasn't changed. The James Webb telescope shows that yes, the universe had a beginning and is still expanding. I do want to point out one piece of evidence from philosophy, not from science, that I think shows beyond any doubt that the universe had a beginning, and here it is. Here, picture this timeline. Here's today. Here is yesterday. There's the day before yesterday. There's last week. Let's say we don't know how far back this timeline goes. We don't know when the beginning was or if there was a beginning. Here's my question. Can this line be infinite into the past? No, why not? What's that? Yeah, you would never get to today if there were an infinite number of days before today. Why? Because if there's an infinite number of days before today, you'd always have to live another day before you got to today. I know this can give you intellectual constipation, and it's early. You just need to think about this, right? If there's an infinite number of days before today, this day's never going to get here. But since today is here, there must only be a finite number of days before today. In fact, you could put it this way. If the past were infinite, today never could have arrived. Here's another way of looking at it. Can you be at the end of an infinite? No, but we are at the end of an infinite today, right? So this line, no matter how far back it goes, can't be infinite. Secondly, can you add anything to an infinite? No, by definition, an infinite is all numbers, right? But tomorrow, we're going to add another day to this. And the day after that, we'll add another day. And the day after, you get the idea. You can't add to an infinite. So no matter how you look at this, time had a beginning. And by the way, if time had a beginning, what could have created time? Only something outside of time. Something timeless. Now, this is one of the ways you answer the question, who made God? Nobody made God. Why? Because God is timeless. And if you're timeless, do you have a beginning? No, that's the whole point. You're outside of time. You don't have a beginning, which means you don't have a cause. You just always existed. Everyone with me so far? All right. Now, let's just jump to the bottom line on this whole argument right now. And it's this. If the universe had a beginning, it seems it must have had a beginner. We've got two options here. Either no one created something out of nothing, which is the atheistic view, or someone created something out of nothing, which is the theistic view. Now, here's my only question. Which view is more reasonable? That no one created something out of nothing, or that someone created something out of nothing? What do you think? Someone, right? Number two. Well, I was at Texas A&M a number of years ago giving this presentation. I put this slide up and an atheist said, "Oh, I think number one is more reasonable." I said, number one? Let's look at number two for a second. Number two says, someone created something out of nothing. Now that's a miracle, right? But at least you got someone, right? You got a miracle worker. Number one is a miracle with no miracle worker. That's clearly absurd. In fact, do you realize that everyone believes in at least one miracle? Christians believe in more than one. We believe in this one and several others. But you know that atheists believe in a miracle? Yeah. They believe that no one created something out of nothing. Now, which view takes more faith? That someone created something out of nothing, or no one created something out of nothing? Yeah, no one created something out of nothing. In fact, I said to the audience at Texas A&M that night, I said, to show you how seriously we all take the law of causality, and oh, by the way, the law of causality doesn't say everything has a cause. The law of causality says everything that comes to be has a cause. There has to be an uncaused first cause. Either it's the universe or something outside the universe. Because you can't go on an infinite regress of causes. There has to be just a cause that just has always existed. By the way, the Bible calls this being the great I am. The being that has always existed. The being that had no beginning. The being that will have no end. In fact, Jesus himself said he was that being. In John chapter 8, remember last night we were talking about when Jesus said, "Your father is the devil." That whole, right in that argument, what does he say to these people? Yeah, he says, "Before Abraham was born, I am." And they immediately picked up stones to stone him. Why? Who is he claiming to be? Where does the I am come from? Who's he quoting? He's quoting Exodus 3:14, the burning bush. Do you remember when God appeared to Charlton Heston? And Moses says to God, who should I tell the Israelites you are? And God says, tell them I am sends you. I am just means the self-existent eternal one. Jesus is claiming to be that being. That's why they picked up stones to stone him. They knew what he was trying to say, what he did say. So this being is the being that had no beginning, will have no end. There has to be that being out there. In any event, I said to the Texas A&M audience that night, I said, to show you how seriously we all take the law of causality, that things don't pop into existence out of nothing, by nothing, without a cause. There is nobody sitting here in this auditorium tonight who is currently worried that as you sit here, a hippopotamus has appeared out of nothing, by nothing, in your dorm room and is currently pooping on your pillow, right? You don't worry about that. You don't worry that a raging Bengal tiger is just going to appear by nothing, out of nothing, by nothing, right here in this auditorium today and start devouring people, right? You know that things don't pop into existence out of nothing, by nothing, without a cause. And if the whole universe could do so, like some atheists are suggesting, why doesn't everything do so? Right? Why don't Teslas pop into existence out of nothing, by nothing, without a cause? You wake up one morning, you look outside, you see your Hyundai is a Tesla. And you go, how do I charge this thing, right? Why don't MacBook Pros pop into existence out of nothing, by nothing, without a cause? Could have saved me $4,000 if I was a little bit more patient. If you're hungry one night and you want to have a pizza, does it make sense to order one? Or should you just sit in your kitchen, wait, and hope one pops into existence out of nothing, by nothing, without a cause? No, we know that things don't pop into existence out of nothing, by nothing, without a cause, and yet atheists are suggesting that's what happened to our universe. You got to have a lot of faith to believe that. In fact, here's a question to ask an atheist. If there is no God, why is there something rather than nothing at all? In other words, if there is no God, why does anything exist? There's no good answer to that. This is a question that Leibniz, a German philosopher about 300 years ago, posed. There is no God. Why does anything exist? There's no answer to that. The best answer is there is a being called God that created all things. Now, what must this being be like from this argument? Well, think about it this way. If space, matter, and time had a beginning out of nothing, whatever created space, matter, and time can't be made of space, matter, and time. In other words, the cause must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful to create the universe out of nothing, personal in order to choose to create. You say, why personal? Because to go from a state of nothingness to a state of creation, someone had to make a choice, and only persons make choices, right? Impersonal forces like gravity, what Hawking said before, they don't decide to do anything. Gravity doesn't decide, look, if Turek drops that thing one more time, I'm not going to pull it to his hand, right? Just does the same thing over and over again. You need a person to make a choice to create something. Also, the being would have to be intelligent in order to have a mind to make a choice. Now, when you think about a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent cause, who do you think of? God. You say, how do you know it's a Christian God, Frank? We don't. Yet. I mean, this could be Allah at this point. We don't know. You don't get all the way to Jesus with one argument. In order to know that this was really Jesus that created the universe, you got to keep going through the questions and see if Jesus really did rise from the dead. Because if he did rise from the dead, then we can go back and say the creator of the universe is Jesus. But until we go there, we can't. Now, once we do get through all this evidence, we're going to realize that the same being that walked out of the tomb 1,989 years ago is the same being in whose divine nature created the universe out of nothing. But we haven't gotten there yet. Nevertheless, we've got six attributes for the cause of the universe from one argument. And these 6 attributes could be the God of the Bible. We don't know if it's the God of the Bible yet, but it could be. You with me so far? All right, so let's go on to the next argument for God, and that is the teleological argument or the design argument. And there are 2 aspects to this argument. One is that the universe itself appears to be designed. It was not put together randomly. And then secondly, life appears to be designed. Let's look at the universe first. We just got done saying it came into existence out of nothing. Well, scientists have discovered in recent decades that the universe is fine-tuned for life to exist here on Earth. Fine-tuned to such an extreme degree that if you were to change any one of a number of factors about our universe, virtually imperceptibly, there would be no universe or no universe that could support life. Let me just give you a couple of examples of this. Stephen Hawking, again an atheist, put it this way about the beginning of the universe, how extremely precise the expansion rate was. Here's what he said. He said, if the expansion rate of the universe was different by 1 part in 1,000 million, a second after the Big Bang, the universe would have collapsed back on itself or never developed galaxies. In other words, if the expansion rate was that infinitesimally different from the very beginning, none of us would be here. Now, you can't make any sort of evolutionary argument for this. You can't say, well, maybe the expansion rate evolved to the right speed by chance somehow. Why? Because this is the initial expansion rate. It started there. It had no time to change. It started at the right speed right from the beginning. It seems to me that the same being that created space, matter, and time is the same being that fine-tuned the expansion rate to be precisely what it needed to be so this universe and this life-permitting universe here on Earth could exist. Well, it's not just one of the initial conditions of the universe. The current condition of the strong nuclear force is just right, or gravitational force. If the gravitational force were altered by more than 1 part in 10 to the 40th power compared to the strong nuclear force, we wouldn't be here. What's 1 part in 10 to the 40th power? That's 1 part in 1 with 40 zeros following it. You say, Frank, I can't get my head around that number. I know, neither can I, so let me give you an illustration. Take the entire North American continent, all the way from the equator up to the North Pole, and stack the entire North American continent in dimes up to the moon. That's 238,000 miles. And then do that on 1 billion other North American continents. And then mark one of the dimes in all those billion piles and mix them in, and blindfold a friend and throw him in any of those piles. The chance that he would pick the 1 marked dime is 1 chance in 10 to the 40th power. What are the chances he's going to pick that dime? 0. He's not going to do it. That's 1 in 10 to the 40th precision. Now you say, well, maybe this all happened by chance. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, is chance a cause? No, chance doesn't do anything. Who caused this? Chance, he was just here. No. Chance is a word we use to describe mathematical possibilities. Chance doesn't do a thing. In fact, if I take out a fair coin and I flip it, what's the chance it's going to come up heads? 50%, right? But is chance causing it to come up heads? No, the amount of force I put in it, the wind direction in the room, how far off the ground I am. Chance doesn't do anything. Chance is just a word we use to cover our ignorance. In fact, when scientists use the word chance, you know what they really mean? We don't know, right? Look, there's only 2 reasons that value is where it is right now. It was either designed to be there or it wasn't. What makes more sense? It was designed to be there. In fact, years ago, I had a couple of debates with Christopher Hitchens. Do you guys know who Christopher Hitchens was? He was a brilliant British atheist who sounded more brilliant than he was because he had a British accent. And even Hitchens admitted this is almost impossible to answer if you're an atheist. Why is the universe so designed? It's as if there's a control room somewhere and all of the dials in this control room represent factors or attributes of our universe, and they're all exactly where they need to be for life to exist here on earth. Any one of the dials, if you change slightly, the whole thing blows up. Somebody wants us to be here. Now, it's not just the universe that appears designed. Our solar system appears to be designed. In fact, it has us in mind. Let's take a look at the solar system here for a minute. There we are, third rock from the sun. If we were just a little bit closer to, or a little bit further away from the sun, we couldn't survive. A little bit closer to, we'd burn up. A little bit further away, we'd freeze. We are what the scientists call the Goldilocks Zone. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. It is, that's a lie. It's way too hot here in the summer. All right? Axial tilt, 23.5 degrees. Change that slightly, we don't exist. Earth rotation, 24 hours. Change that slightly, we don't exist. The size and distance of the moon from us, change that slightly, we don't exist. Oxygen is 21% right now in this room. If it were 25%, spontaneous fires would break out. If it were 15%, we'd all suffocate. If Jupiter was not in its current orbit, we couldn't exist here on Earth. Why? What does Jupiter do for us? Jupiter's gravitational force is so strong that it attracts most of the meteors and space junk to it rather than us. It's a cosmic vacuum cleaner. In fact, if you take a close-up look at Jupiter, you know what these dark marks are? Those are comet fragment strikes that are bigger than the Earth. Thank God for Jupiter. Because if Jupiter wasn't there, we wouldn't be here. Saturn does the same thing for us. It's a cosmic vacuum cleaner. In fact, you want to see the size of the planets? Here they are. There's Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Earth. Look at poor Pluto down here. You know, Pluto recently has been demoted as a planet. I don't know about you, but I think it's size discrimination. And what if Pluto identifies as a planet? What then? You bigots. Take a look at this. You can hardly see Pluto. Take a look at this. That's Arcturus. That's another star in our galaxy. Here's the sun. Jupiter is 1 pixel in size on this scale. Earth is invisible. Pluto, forget about it. All right, keep an eye on Arcturus now. Where's Arcturus now? Way over here. That's Antares. That's another star in our galaxy. It's not outside our galaxy, in our galaxy. The sun is 1 pixel in size on this scale. Jupiter is invisible. Earth, Pluto, forget about them. In fact, if the Earth was the size of a golf ball, Beetlejuice here. Look, I don't name the stars, all right? If the Earth was the size of a golf ball, Beetlejuice would be 5 or 6 Empire State Buildings high. The heavens are awesome. And this is just in our galaxy. And the average distance between stars in our galaxy is 30 trillion miles, and all that distance is necessary for us to exist here on Earth. If it were different, gravitational forces would interfere with our orbits, and there could be no life. Now, 30 trillion miles, how far is that? Far. It'll take you at least 2 tanks of gas on a Toyota Prius to go 30 trillion miles. A number of years ago, my wife and I took our young 3 sons, a number of years ago, to the Desert Museum in Tucson, Arizona. If you ever get a chance to go to Tucson, on the south side of the city, over the hill there, they've got this Desert Museum. And if you go out there at night, on a clear night, you can see thousands of stars in the sky. So we're out there this one night, and the guide says, wow, it's so clear tonight that if we look up at 9:03, we're going to see the space shuttle in orbit. I said, oh, come on, we're not going to see the space shuttle. It's only 120 feet long. It's 350 miles up. We're not going to see it. Oh, me of little faith. At 9:03, the guide goes, look! When we look up in the sky, About 70 degrees above the horizon, there's an object streaking across the western desert sky relative to us about like this. I mean, it's really cooking. When it got right about here, it disappeared. I don't know whether Scotty beamed it up or what. Actually, what happened was, despite the fact that we were in total darkness, the space shuttle was so high up that the sun was still reflecting off of it. And then when it got out of the range of the sun, we couldn't see it anymore. Now, when the space shuttle was in orbit, the space shuttle was traveling at about 18,000 miles an hour. That's 5 miles per second. You got trouble getting to work in the morning? Take the space shuttle. You'll be there. 5 miles a second. Think about how fast that is. Well, I did a little calculation to try and figure out how long would it take us if we could get in the space shuttle and go from our star, the sun, to another star inside our galaxy, an average distance away, 30 trillion miles. In other words, how long would it take us to go 30 trillion miles if we could go 5 miles per second? How long do you think it would take us? A long time. You must be a math major. It would take us 201,450 years. That means if you got in the space shuttle at the time of Christ and started traveling from our star, the sun, to another star inside our galaxy an average distance away, you've been going 5 miles a second for 2,000 years. You would be less than 1/100th of the way there right now. And we're going to explore space. No, we're not. We're not going anywhere in space. We can't even get out of our solar system hardly. You know, it took us 9 years to get to Pluto. 9 years to get to Pluto. Forget about it. In fact, imagine our solar system the size of a quarter. And the sun is a microscopic speck of dust at the center of the quarter. Pluto's on the outer rim of the quarter. Where's the next nearest star? It's 2 football fields away. The heavens are awesome. We're never going to get to another planetary system. At least not travel in the way we do now. If we figure out speed of light travel, 186,000 miles a second, it's going to take you almost 4 years at 186,000 miles per second to get to the next nearest star. We're never going to get there. It's too far and it's too dangerous. But let's say we figure it out one day. In fact, what I'm about to show you is a little bit disturbing, but I'm going to show it to you anyway because you're a mature audience. Let's say we get to this next nearest planetary system. We plant our flag, and then this happens. Beans are not for astronauts, ladies and gentlemen. Now, to show you how analytical my wife is, I showed her that video, and she smiled just a little bit, and she said, "That's illogical. There's no sound in space." Now, just how vast is the universe? Well, before we get there, notice that here's what the psalmist says. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his love for those that fear him. As high as the heavens are above the earth. How high are the heavens above the earth? I mean, if it's going to take us over 200,000 years at 5 miles a second just to go from one star to another star in our galaxy, and there are apparently billions of galaxies, how many stars are there in the entire universe? Well, the Hubble Space Telescope helped us discover how many stars there are in the universe. A number of years ago, they trained the Hubble Space Telescope on 1/26 millionth of the sky. What's 1/26 millionth of the sky? Go out tonight, put a piece of rice on the end of your finger, hold it up. That piece of rice represents about 1/26 millionth of the sky. So they trained Hubble on this for 11 days of exposure time. This is called Hubble Ultra Deep Field. You can Google this and see what I'm about to show you. This little video they put together is in the public domain. And I'm going to show you the video that they created out of this. I don't know if you can see this, but along the bottom here, these are mountains. See that right there? And this is the southern hemisphere. So they looked at a piece of the southern hemisphere. And when I start this little composite video, you're going to see the constellations come up, and then Hubble's going to zoom out to this 1/26 millionth of the sky. There is no audio. It's just a bunch of pictures strung together. Are you guys ready? Yeah. All right, here's Hubble Ultra Deep Field. There are the constellations. Now let's go out to 1/26 millionth of the sky. What you're looking at are nearly 10,000 galaxies in 1/26 millionth of the sky. Each of these galaxies containing billions of stars themselves. So how many stars are there in the entire universe? The number of stars in the entire universe are about equivalent to the number of grains of sand on all the beaches, on all the earth, times 100,000. And to go from one star to another star, going 5 miles a second will take you over 200,000 years. Now you know why the Bible says the heavens declare the glory of God. Ladies and gentlemen, I never want to hear anyone ever again at a Rise Church ever use the word awesome unless you're talking about God or the heavens. Awesome shot, dude. Awesome shirt, dude. Awesome TikTok video. No! If you use awesome like it means nothing, what are you going to reserve for God? When you look at a universe that has stars equivalent to sand grains on 100,000 Earths, you get an idea of what awesome is. I didn't show you the entire verse a minute ago. Here's the rest of the verse in Psalm 103. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his love for those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far as he removed our transgressions from us. God's love exceeds the height of the heavens above the earth. So how does he remove our transgressions from us? You know, when Jesus said he was the only way, that's not an arbitrary claim. That's the only way that an infinitely just God can allow unjust creatures like me and you to go unpunished, is he's got to take the punishment himself. It's not an arbitrary claim. The heavens declare the glory of God. What does that mean? It means when we look to the heavens, we get a sense of what infinity means, right? And that means that every one of God's attributes are infinite. His justice is infinite. You know what that means? We're in trouble because we've been unjust. We've been unjust. And if God is infinite, and he is, he's got to punish us. If he doesn't, he's not just. But all of his attributes are infinite, but his other attribute that's germane here is the fact that he's infinitely loving. So he doesn't want to punish us. So what does he do? He punishes an innocent substitute in our place. Who can he find who's innocent? No one except himself. So he adds humanity to his deity. He comes to earth. He allows the creatures that rebelled against him to torture and kill him so he could save them from their own sins. This is why this is the greatest story ever told. It's not an arbitrary claim when God says, or Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. There is no other way an infinitely just being can allow unjust creatures to go unpunished. He's got to punish someone in our place, so he punishes himself. This is why Paul can say in Romans 3:26, God is the just and the justifier of the one who has faith in Jesus. He's just because he still punishes sin, but he justifies the ungodly, us, because he punishes himself in our place. And you can look to the heavens and realize that every one of God's attributes are infinite. So he took our punishment. That's why he can remove our transgressions from us as far as the east is from the west. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you think of a universe that has stars equivalent to sand grains on 100,000 Earths, and it would take you over 200,000 years at 5 miles a second to go between those stars just in our galaxy, does that make you feel insignificant? Yep. It shouldn't. Why? Because although the heavens are amazing, they're not made in the image of God, but you are. You are made in the image of God. In fact, the heavens were made so you would know God, so you would know his glory.
Thank you so much for watching the message. We hope that this message has literally left you feeling inspired and encouraged to take one more step closer to Jesus. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Share this on all your platforms of social media. We thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week.